Welcome to Lesson 3, Operating Systems, the Real World Way. Here's the deal. In 2026, help desks are roughly 70% Windows, 15% Mac, 5% Linux on the desktop. But flip to the server room, and it's 95% Linux. Real IT work means supporting all three, so we're dropping the tribal Windows versus Mac debates and learning which OS wins which job. By the end, you'll match the right system to any scenario like a senior engineer. Start with Windows because that's where the tickets are. Around 80% of your help desk queue will be Windows machines tied into Active Directory, Microsoft 365, Group Policy, and Intune, all designed Windows first, which is exactly why corporate IT standardizes on it. Know the difference between Pro and Home. Domain-joined machines need Pro for AD join, BitLocker, and Group Policy. Its strengths are gaming, software breadth, and hardware support. Its weaknesses are bloat, telemetry, and forced reboots. Live with both. That's the job. Now macOS, different beast entirely. It only runs on Apple hardware, holds about 15% of the desktop market, but absolutely dominates among creative pros and increasingly senior developers, especially since Apple Silicon landed in 2020 and gave Macs 15 to 20-hour battery life with serious performance. Strengths: polish, trackpad, the BSD shell devs love, and tight iPhone integration. Weaknesses you'll hit on the job: $1,000 entry price, weak gaming, and painful Active Directory integration, which is exactly why corporate IT often pushes back when a designer requests a Mac. So instead of arguing which OS is best, look at this matrix. 8 real-world jobs, 3 operating systems, and 1 honest winner per row. Windows takes the corporate office, gaming, and the family PC. macOS owns video editing and edges out as the best balance for modern dev work. Linux wins servers, privacy, and breathing life into old hardware. The pattern is the whole lesson. Pick the OS that fits the work, not the team you want to belong to. On the help desk, that mindset is what separates a pro from a fanboy. And Linux is where that mindset really pays off. 5% of desktops, but 95% of servers. Every AWS instance, every Docker container, every Android phone in someone's pocket is Linux under the hood. It's not one OS either. It's hundreds of distros sharing a kernel. Ubuntu to start, Debian for stability, Arch if you like pain. The trade-off is real. Free forever, runs on a decade-old laptop, zero telemetry, but no Adobe, no native Office, and the terminal is non-negotiable. Average users quit in 2 weeks. The engineers who push through end up running the cloud. So here's how you actually decide, on the job or at the dinner table. Walk these 5 questions top to bottom, and the first yes wins. Server, Linux, done. Adobe, Final Cut, Logic, Mac or Windows. Competitive gaming, Windows because anti-cheat. Corporate Windows shop with Active Directory and M365, Windows. Don't fight your IT department. Non-technical user, Mac or Windows because grandma should not be running sudo. Only if every answer is no does Linux become a real desktop option. Stop arguing in absolutes, ask the questions, give the answer. Let's put that framework to work. 4 real people, 4 different right answers. The 45-year-old office worker on M365, Windows, because retraining her on Mac costs the company 20 hours she doesn't have. The YouTube editor, it's Mac because Final Cut is Mac only, and Apple Silicon eats 4K for breakfast. The DevOps engineer, Mac or Linux, both Unix, both win. The competitive gamer, Windows because anti-cheat and DirectX. Same question, 4 answers. That's the whole point. Now, to actually support those 4 users, you need the vocabulary. These 12 terms show up in every OS conversation. G versus CLI, the kernel at the core, the shell you type into. Know that Finder is Mac's Explorer. A plist is a Mac config file. Sudo runs commands as admin on Linux. And the registry is where Windows hides its settings. Memorize these. They tell you where to click and what to type when a ticket lands on your desk. Now, with the vocabulary down, let's kill 5 myths that waste everyone's time. Mac for designers, Windows for gamers, Linux for hackers, outdated stereotypes. Match the OS to the use case. Linux isn't too hard for grandma's email, but it'll fight you on Adobe. Mac is not magically secure. It needs updates, antivirus, and MFA just like Windows. You can run Windows software on other platforms through Wine, Parallels, or just the browser. And no, AI won't merge the OS layer. Drivers, hardware, and ecosystems still matter. Pick by job, not by tribe. And that's Listen 3 locked in. You've got the three big players mapped to where they actually shine. Windows in the workplace, macOS for creative and dev shops, Linux running the servers, and you know to pick by the job, not the logo. Next up, Listen 4, files, folders, and paths. One mental model that works everywhere, and trust me, understanding paths will save you in more help desk tickets than you'd expect. See you there.